Hello, and welcome to the lecture on the Minority Report, the film. This week I'm going to be reading through the lecture notes discussing the film Minority Report starring Tom Cruise. I asked you to watch or rewatch Minority Report the movie, and we're going to be comparing the story that we read last week to the film to discuss why some narrative conventions remain and why others are changed. In order to make our discussion easier, I've listed comments about the movie below in chronological order for the way that they happened in the film. So let's start with number 1. The opening of the movie begins with an action sequence. We get to watch as Anderton, played by Tom Cruise, tries to stop a red ball murder, a crime of passion. Of course, this was not discussed in the story we read. We get to see the way PreCrime works instead of being told about it as we read in the story. A great difference between film and story, obviously, is that you get to see the action unfold. Sometimes this can be good, because we get to see how the special effects used in movies like Minority Report make the world of the story come to life. The graphics in the opening section put us in the futuristic world of 2054. They also let us see the precogs and their treatment in more detail. However, the special effects used also limit our imaginative participation in the story. If we are shown exactly what everything looks like, we cannot envision the world of the story for ourselves, which helps us connect to the characters and the plot as we read. As we will see, films have to make us connect to the story in different ways, since they take away part of that imaginative participation. Number 2. The movie also uses a lot of subtle details to give you the backstory of how PreCrime works and what the setup for the movie is. In case you weren't paying close attention, we learned from the commercial that PreCrime began 6 years ago, and it is a program only run in Washington, D.C. The director, Lamar Burgess, is asking people to vote yes to take the program national. This sets up the plot for the movie. PreCrime is a small program, and they want to expand it to reduce the murder rates for everyone. This is different than the plot of the story. So in the story, PreCrime is a good system that is protecting everyone, and the government wants to stop it so they can have more power. In the movie, PreCrime is a local system that wants more power. The government, represented by Colin Farrell's character Whitwer, is looking to see if it has any flaws. He is not trying to bring it down so much as make sure that it's a safe program that protects the rights of the victims and the criminals. Number 3. Another major difference from the story is the introduction of Anderton's personal life and his emotional crisis. As you remember, the story shows Anderton's concerns about being forced into retirement by Whitwer, a younger man. The movie makes his emotional life much more a part of the plot by showing his drug addiction due to his son's abduction. Of course, this will play into the plot later when this is used to frame him for murder and get him out of the way. The important thing to remember about this change in the plot of the story is that Anderton's personal crisis makes us much more sympathetic to his character. Most of us may not be able to relate to an older man who is being forced into retirement. We may or may not sympathize with him. But even if you don't have children, you will probably feel sorry for Anderton when you watch him in his apartment, grieving for the loss of his child and his separation from his wife. The sympathy you likely feel for him makes you want him to succeed and establishes him as the hero or the person to identify with in the movie. Number 4. Another major difference between the movie and the story is the treatment of the precogs. Philip K. Dick did not really address the precogs' treatment in the story, other than in their descriptions. But the movie's overall plot, and especially the conclusion, make their treatment central to the film. Characters in the movie remark on how the precogs are kept drugged in order for their psychic powers to function, and how it's better not to think of them as human. They also deify the precogs, making them into the role of gods in a culture that is primarily scientific. The treatment of the precogs introduces an ethical problem into the film, one that the entire plot hinges on. So, spoiler alert, you should watch the movie before reading more. Agatha, the female precog, is taken from her mother by Lamar Burgess, the PreCrime director, and forced to become a precog. Burgess murders Agatha's mother so that he can use Agatha's psychic powers. The problem of PreCrime in the movie, we discover, is actually very similar to the problem in the story. The precogs work as a hive mind, and they produce majority reports, where they agree, and minority reports, which show alternatives. They also produce echoes, which are repetitions of previous murders. These are deleted by the technicians. Burgess knew about the echoes, so he first hires someone to murder Agatha's mother, then the precogs see it and the murderer is stopped in time. But then Burgess actually murders Agatha's mother in exactly the same way the precogs originally saw it. The technicians then think it's an echo and delete the information. In this way, Burgess is able to murder in secret without being caught. And when Anderton discovers the Anne Lively data, that's Agatha's mother, Burgess sets him up in order to get him out of the way. Burgess doesn't want his own murder to be discovered, and he also doesn't want people to know there is a flaw in PreCrime. Of course, another major difference in the film is that Whitwer is also murdered because he discovers the Anne Lively connection too. Number 5. In the film, Anderton's status as a hero is also completely different from the story. You'll remember that in the story, Anderton commits murder in order for the PreCrime system to continue functioning. We, as readers, know the system is somewhat flawed because we understand that the future is not fixed. However, Anderton is fighting against the government who wants to control everything. So when he kills Kaplan, we could see this as heroic. He decides to kill him because he thinks PreCrime is good and he wants to help it continue, even if he has to go into exile. However, in the movie, Anderton decides to take down the system before it can go national. He thinks that if it is flawed and innocent people are convicted, then no one should use it. Additionally, he thinks about the precogs' treatment and realizes that it's unethical to use humans in this way. We even hear lies told to children about the precogs' lives when Anderton sneaks back into the headquarters after he gets new eyes. The children are told that each precog has its own TV, bedroom, and weight room. In fact, as we know, the precogs are kept drugged all the time. This, again, directs our sympathy toward Anderton and the precogs and against the PreCrime system. We likely start to view the system as bad and the individual as good. We want Anderton to be successful, and this drives the suspense of the film. This also makes Anderton a hero because he takes down the PreCrime system instead of supporting it. In fact, this type of heroism is the exact opposite of the story we read. Think about why a movie would do this. Number 6. The mode of this movie is widely considered to be science fiction, which is part of the fantasy genre. In science fiction films, we always look at the future, when scientific achievement has influenced characters' fate. In this case, the precogs were not supernatural, as they would be in pure fantasy. Instead, they are born with special gifts because their parents were drug addicts, a natural explanation rather than fantasy. Then, Miss Heinemann, the lady in the greenhouse scene, tried to cure them through genetic treatment and research. Again, science, not fantasy. Many children died through these scientific experiments, but the 3 precogs survived and were put to use in the PreCrime system. Again, the ethics of science and the treatment of people becomes the center of the film's plot and theme. In the story, we focused more on the ethics of a justice system that would convict potentially innocent people. But in the movie, we are asked to think more about the problems of scientific research and its impact on humans. Of course, we have to think about the consequences of the justice system too, but this emphasis is downplayed somewhat since Agatha's treatment is central to the plot. Overall, the movie produces much more closure than the story did. In the story, Dick let the meaning remain open-ended. He showed us Anderton's actions, but we still had to decide if we thought he was right or wrong to support the PreCrime system. In the film, we don't have to decide. PreCrime is taken down, and the precogs are given a happy ending, living in a peaceful environment. We don't have to make a moral decision, since the film does this for us. This affects our viewing experience and how much we may think about the ethical questions this film raises. Number 7. Overall, I want you to think about why the director and screenplay writers would make these types of changes to the story. What is gained and what is lost? Think about your own viewing experience. Did you find it more entertaining, more thought-provoking? Were you more or less concerned with the characters or the political implications of the story or of the film? Did the film feel more like pure entertainment, or did you learn something from it? I especially want you to think about the uses of story as it becomes film. How does it connect to your identity? And how do you think about yourself and the future of your society based on watching and reading? Keep these questions in mind as you continue looking at the adaptation issues from story into film. Thanks.